Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into complex topics to bring you the most essential insights.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're tackling a subject almost everyone has a strong opinion on: education.
Oh, definitely.
As one of our sources wisely notes, everybody's been in fourth grade, so everybody knows what good teaching is.
Mm-hmm.
That familiarity, it makes us feel like instant experts.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
But, what if we told you that the academic field that's actually dedicated to deeply understanding teaching and learning, well, it's faced a surprisingly uphill battle for respect and relevance.
Yeah, it's a truly fascinating and often misunderstood world behind the classroom door.
Absolutely.
So our mission today is to take a deep dive into education research. We're going to unpack its, well, surprising historical struggles,
Mm-hmm.
explore the vibrant, multi-layered insights emerging right now, and discover how this vital field is evolving to meet the challenges of preparing learners for tomorrow.
And we'll reveal why its history is so contentious and how new approaches are maybe set to redefine what knowing truly means in education.
Exactly. For this deep dive, where are we drawing our insights from?
So we're using a really seminal collection of insights. It was compiled by the National Academy of Education, and it brings together leading scholars across various disciplines.
Okay.
And they scrutinize the, quote, problems and possibilities within education research.
Got it. All right, let's unpack this. We're going to start with what some have called the awkward child of academia, education research and its historical challenges.
Right. The awkward child. It's a good way to put it. It's a field that, for much of its history, has gotten no respect, often scorned and demeaned even.
Scorned and demeaned. Wow. Why such a tough reception?
Well, it's been accused of things like ignoring important questions while reinforcing practices that stand in the way of fundamental reform.
Okay.
And there are early examples. Consider Paul Hannes. He arrived at Harvard in 1890, first full-time education faculty member there.
Right.
And he found most colleagues considered educational science to be, well, bogus.
Bogus. Serious.
Yeah. The philosopher George Herbert Palmer famously quipped that Hannes bore the onus of his subject. So this early academic skepticism, it highlights a core, persistent challenge.
Which is?
Education research battles for legitimacy, partly because its subject matter teaching and learning feels universally understood.
Ah, that everyone's been to fourth grade idea again.
Exactly. It leads to this often unfounded sense of public expertise.
That's a profound point. Unlike more esoteric fields like medicine or physics, education is it's a more public enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
Because pretty much everyone has been to school. Critics from all sides, some well-informed and some not, have felt competent and entitled to read, interpret, comment on, and even evaluate educational science.
It's a real double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And this external scrutiny, it was compounded by internal challenges too.
Like what?
What's fascinating here is that for much of its history, education scholarship just never developed these widely shared traditions, or even a clearly discernible research community.
So, kind of fragmented.
Very fragmented. And this often leaves it without widely respected criteria for distinguishing the sound from the spurious.
Okay. So it's hard to tell what's good research and what isn't.
Precisely. And that contributed directly to its low public repute.
So why does this turbulent past matter to you, our listener?
Well, understanding it helps explain why innovation in education can be so difficult to implement.
Right.
And maybe why debates often spiral into these ideological arguments instead of, evidence-based discussions.
It's not just about what we learn, but how we trust the process of learning about learning itself.
That makes perfect sense. Now let's shift a bit and move into a long-standing core conflict. It's something that has really plagued education research.
Okay.
Identified by the National Academy of Education way back in 1969. It's this push-pull between inquiry for conclusion, that's your basic research aimed at understanding.
Right, the theoretical side.
And inquiry for decision, which is applied research focused on practical solutions for the classroom or policy.
That sounds like a recipe for constant frustration. You're trying to serve two masters. How did that tension actually manifest in practice?
Well, ironically, historical attempts to try and resolve this tension, trying to accommodate both demands, they often resulted in work that satisfied neither.
Neither side.
Neither side. Take, for example, the massive New York City school survey. This was back in 1911, 1912.
Okay.
Led by Paul Hannes again. This project ran 12 volumes, cost over $100,000 a fortune back then.
Wow.
But despite its strong recommendations, there was often an ambiguous connection between the information gathered and the recommendations that followed.
Meaning?
Sometimes the recommendations seem derived more from the researcher's inner consciousness than the actual data.
Oh dear, not exactly evidence-based.
Not quite. The source calls the whole experience bruising all around.
That's a classic problem, isn't it? Great intentions, but a disconnect between the research findings and real-world application.
Absolutely. And even John Dewey's really innovative laboratory school,
Yeah, I've heard of that.
which aimed to create new standards and ideals rather than directly applying specific methods, even that failed to satisfy demands for either relevance or research.
So it seems this tension has plagued the field for a very, very long time.
It really has. If we consider, you know, analogous fields, maybe like pharmaceutical research,
Okay.
they have rigorous clinical trials. These help mediate extreme positions and bring competing research strands together. Education research has too often deprived of this mediating force.
So there isn't always that clear pathway from theory to widely tested practical application in the classroom.
Not consistently, no. It's a challenge.
It's an interesting parallel, although I suppose education deals with human development in a much more complex, less controllable environment than, say, testing a drug.
That's a very fair point. Complexity is key.
So how does the field envision moving forward from this historical tension? Is there a way?
Well, the good news is that recent breakthroughs in conclusion-focused inquiry, the basic research side, especially in areas like cognitive science, they're showing immense promise, really exciting stuff.
Right.
But to translate these breakthroughs into meaningful policies and programs, that's going to require the renewal of authentic clinical research and education.
So developing its own rigorous methods for testing applications in real settings.
Exactly. It needs its own distinct identity and norms for that kind of work, much like medicine developed its clinical trials over time.
This inherent tension, it really reveals why educational fads can emerge so quickly,
Yes.
and maybe why truly evidence-based practices often struggle to gain lasting traction.
It leaves teachers and students kind of caught in this cycle of fad-to-fad professional development.
Always chasing the next big thing without maybe a solid, proven foundation.
Precisely. And it highlights the urgent need for a stronger, more reliable bridge between what we learn from research and how we apply it effectively in classrooms.
Okay, let's shift gears again. Our next segment dives into the numbers game, the really profound influence of testing and social science on education research.
Ah, yes, testing.
And the scrutiny of school outcomes isn't actually new, is it? Back in the 1840s, Horace Mann's allies apparently caused a hornet's nest of local controversy.
They did, by reporting that most grammar schools, in their view, failed to educate most students.
Controversial indeed.
And then at the end of the 19th century, Joseph Meyer Rice did something similar nationally. He devised and administered tests, and his findings also showed pretty dismal student performance across many city schools.
So this early work kind of set a precedent for looking at education through the lens of measurable outcomes.
It certainly did. But the post-World War II era, that really brought a major scientific turn to the inquiry.
How so?
Systematic investigation into the effects of schooling really began in earnest then, enabled by advances in survey research and, crucially, computerized data analysis.
Ah, technology playing a role even back then.
Absolutely. This paved the way for landmark studies like James Coleman's 1966 Equality of Educational Opportunity Survey, often just called the EEOS or the Coleman Report.
The Coleman Report, right. What was so significant about that?
Well, what's fascinating here is Coleman's main finding. He reported that the personal attributes of these students were far and away more powerful predictors of achievement than attributes of their schools.
Wait, say that again? The student's background mattered more than the school?
Essentially, yes. According to his analysis, when student background variables were accounted for, the differences in achievement between schools virtually disappeared.
Wow. That must have been explosive.
It was. This led to the powerful and, frankly, subversive findings encapsulated in the schools make no difference idea.
Which sounds quite shocking.
It was reinforced by Christopher Jenks's 1972 book, Inequality. His work suggested that simply allocating more money to schools serving poor children would be unlikely to improve achievement.
Okay, so these findings were incredibly influential, politically speaking.
Hugely influential. Conservatives, including the Nixon administration, used them to support skepticism about the big federal Great Society programs aimed at poverty reduction and education. And they even used it as justification to invent things like performance contracting initiatives tying funding more directly to outcomes. It fundamentally shifted the conversation about educational investment.
And this naturally led into the era of accountability, right? With this fierce focus on school outputs and results-oriented thinking.
Exactly. The belief took hold that schools should be penalized if they fail to produce results.
And the standards-based reform movement, that just intensified the attention on explicit outcomes.
It absolutely did. Think of the 1989 Charlottesville Declaration by the nation's governors and the president. It basically suggested that to compete globally, the nation needed simply more and more training in science and math. Very output-focused.
Okay, so this focus on measurable outcomes brings us to a really crucial and often misunderstood element: standardized tests.
Yes. And the scholar Deborah W. Meyer offers some really sharp insights here. She argues that many traditional standardized tests, they're primarily designed to do one thing:
What's that?
to produce a reliable and predictable rank order, much like IQ tests.
A rank order, like
Yeah.
sorting students.
Exactly. Sorting. They often predict future performance based on items that schools are unlikely or unable to teach directly.
So it's less about measuring what students have actually learned in school and more about predicting future success based on maybe inherent ability or background.
That's Meyer's argument, essentially. She calls it the fallacy revealed. It's puzzling, she says, how it was ever imagined that such an instrument could measure the nation's progress at creating a better educated citizenry.
Especially, she notes, when a child's socioeconomic status was already a better and cheaper predictor of that rank order.
Precisely. So these tests primarily offer a kind of promise of no change over time, just a picture of who belonged where along the immutable bell curve.
That really challenges the common perception of tests as neutral, objective measurements of learning.
It absolutely does. And the implications for teaching are equally concerning, according to Meyer.
How so?
Well, unlike, say, a driver's test, where coaching on the specific skills is entirely appropriate,
Right, you want people to learn to drive safely.
Meyer suggests that coaching for these rank order tests far less often improves reading and can even endanger good reading.
Endanger good reading. How?
Because, she argues, it masks the real problems that low scorers are having by focusing on test-taking tricks rather than deep comprehension.
That's worrying.
Indeed. And what's more, attempts to introduce new, perhaps more authentically assessed systems, think of California's efforts or Vermont's portfolio assessment system.
Yeah, I remember hearing about those.
They tended to be more expensive, harder to explain to the public, and they lack that instant familiarity of the multiple-choice bubble sheets.
So what happened?
Consequently, the old tests emerged stronger than ever.
Wow, that's a powerful paradox, especially when you think about the popular mantra, all children can learn.
Exactly. If tests are fundamentally designed to produce a fixed rank order, a bell curve,
Then schools can at best change places with each other on that curve. You can't have everyone moving up if the structure is fixed.
right. And Meyer warns this can eventually lead to a public perception that it's the mantra about all children that is passé, not the tests.
That's a sobering thought.
So, Meyer urges researchers to provide a powerful voice of sanity right now, because the overuse of testing is drowning out good practice, and when testing is actually cutting off debate about purposes.
The key takeaway here for you, the listener, is that tests are not neutral instruments. They carry deep historical and societal biases, and they shape public policy and classroom practice in really unexpected, sometimes detrimental ways.
It certainly makes you question the assumption of tests as purely objective measures of school quality or student learning.
Definitely. Now, let's broaden our lens again and explore how education is being understood through truly interdisciplinary perspectives.
Yes, this is crucial.
It's important to remember that education has always been studied by a wide range of disciplines, not just educators. We're talking psychologists, historians, philosophers, sociologists, anthropologists, linguists, economists.
Alongside the educators and practitioners themselves, it's inherently interdisciplinary.
So how does each discipline shed a unique light? Let's start with sociology.
Okay. Sociology, for instance, helped establish really foundational ideas about how education isn't just about individual learning. It's deeply intertwined with larger societal structures.
Right.
Early sociologists like Max Weber and Emil Durkheim, they showed how education shapes class relations, social order, moral development.
So the big picture stuff.
Exactly. Later researchers like Willard Waller looked at the social organization within schools, even student resistance. Petiram Sorokin explored education as a channel for social mobility.
So it's not just about what happens in the classroom in isolation, but how schools function as part of society.
Precisely. Now, this led to what's called the individualist turn in the mid-20th century, a big focus on status attainment research.
Status attainment.
Yeah, think of studies like those by Peter Blau and Otis Dudley Duncan, looking at individual characteristics like education level and their effects on where people ended up in the occupational structure.
Ah, okay. How education impacts your job prospects, basically.
Right. And Coleman's EEOs, the Coleman report we just discussed, with its emphasis on individual student attributes, it fit neatly into this framework.
I see the connection.
However, while this individualist approach yielded a lot about the distribution of individual life chances, it offered, quote, not a great deal about how schools work internally as organizations.
Okay, so it missed the inner workings of the school itself.
To some extent, yes. And this limitation has led to newer sociological lines of inquiry. For example, studies of schools as institutionalized organizations.
What does that mean?
Work by Meyer and Rowan, for instance. They argue that a school's success often depends as much on fitting into its institutional environment looking legitimate, following expected procedures, as on pure efficiency.
Interesting. So appearances and conforming matter.
And also more cross-national comparisons, especially in our era of globalization. How do education systems differ across countries and cultures?
That's a crucial shift in perspective. Okay, let's shift disciplines again. What about anthropology? What lens does that bring?
Anthropology tends to focus on culture, power, and identity. And in an era of globalization, it sees education as a really contested terrain.
Contested.
Yes, a place where the politics of culture is being framed and often fought. It asks fundamental questions about what counts as authoritative knowledge, whose knowledge matters.
Okay.
And anthropological research frequently emphasizes schools' contradictory role
How?
as both a potential path for personal and collective advancement,
Right, the opportunity aspect.
and simultaneously a powerful and subtle instrument of domination and control.
Domination and control, that sounds strong.
It challenges the modern nation-state's common belief that schools are just these neutral institutions providing equal opportunities.
The anthropology suggests they're not always neutral.
Ethnographic studies, deep observational research within schools and communities often reveal how forms of inequality, racial, class, cultural, and gender inequities are reproduced as well as challenged within the school setting.
So schools can inadvertently perpetuate inequality even while trying to challenge it.
That's a key insight from anthropology. A classic example is Paul Willis's 1977 book, Learning to Labor.
What did he find?
He studied working-class boys, lads, he called them in England. He showed how they created this oppositional culture in school, rejecting the school's values.
Okay, rebelling, basically.
Yes, but ironically, this rebellion, this oppositional culture, unwittingly contributes to the reproduction of social inequality across the generations because it prepared them for low-status manual labor jobs, not academic success.
Wow, so their resistance actually locked them into their expected social class.
In a way, yes. It revealed that students are definitely not passive recipients of culture. They actively shape their experience, but sometimes in ways that have unintended consequences.
That's powerful. What other anthropological ideas are relevant here?
Well, there's the influence of post-structuralist ideas, particularly for Michel Foucault. His concept of power is really influential.
Foucault. How does his idea of power apply to schools?
He argued that power doesn't just operate from, central authorities like the government or the principal's office.
Okay.
It also operates through what he called discursive sites of power, places like classrooms themselves. And it exercises control via numerous surveillance and ordering techniques.
Surveillance and ordering techniques. Can you give us an example?
Certainly. Foucault points to seemingly mundane aspects of school life, the micro-penalty of time, things like being marked late, absences, getting in trouble for interrupting tasks, things we take for granted.
And also behavior, rules about politeness, obedience. As he put it, every education system is a political means of maintaining or modifying the appropriation of discourses. Who gets to speak, what counts as acceptable speech, how time is structured, it's all subtly political. That's a fascinating, if slightly unsettling, insight. Even the simple rules of a classroom can be seen as subtle mechanisms of power.
According to that perspective, yes.
And how does identity play into this anthropological lens?
Well, the politicization of group identity, especially since the 1960s civil rights movement and other social movements, really questions the idea of a single universal truth, a single transhistorical truth.
Okay.
This perspective suggests that even what we often considered objective, universal knowledge like Western European science, can be seen as an ethnoscience,
And no science.
meaning essentially a system of knowledge deeply rooted in a particular culture, rather than being purely objective or universally valid in all contexts.
Right. It makes knowledge itself culturally situated.
Exactly. And to illustrate just how deeply cultural context matters for learning, consider this fascinating anecdote from the research.
Okay.
It's from a Zafamanari village in Madagascar. Local villagers viewed the knowledge taught in school as a form of wisdom, which sounds positive.
Yeah.
But they considered it problematic. Why? Because it was being transmitted by the wrong kind of people to the wrong kind of people, since it is taught by the young to the very young.
So their cultural beliefs about who should teach whom clashed with the school structure.
Profoundly. It demonstrates how deeply cultural beliefs shape the very reception and meaning of education.
These interdisciplinary perspectives, sociology, anthropology, they offer such a richer, more nuanced understanding of education.
Absolutely.
It moves us beyond simplistic views of just inputs and outputs, test scores, to reveal how schools are deeply embedded in these complex social, cultural, and political systems. It really makes you rethink what education truly is.
Indeed. It's about much more than just what happens between the four walls of a classroom.
So true. Next up, we're delving into how we actually cultivate the researchers themselves, looking at training and practice in the field of education research.
Right. The people doing the work.
What makes for good educational scholarship in the first place?
Well, the sources emphasize it must be disciplined, meaning systematic, using trustworthy methods, and it also needs to be generative,
Generative.
meaning it allows others to build upon the findings, to push the field forward. And a key challenge here, maybe surprisingly, is just problem identification.
Finding the right questions to ask.
Exactly. Finding difficult and meaningful problems where progress can actually be made. That's harder than it sounds.
I can imagine. So what are some of the significant challenges in research training itself?
Well, there's a deeper problem that gets highlighted. Researchers often adopt methods from allied fields, powerful statistical methods from psychology or economics, or maybe discourse analysis from linguistics.
Okay.
But sometimes without really understanding the deep assumptions behind those methods.
So using a tool without knowing exactly how it works.
Precisely. And if there's a mismatch between the method's assumptions and the educational context you're studying, the findings can be essentially meaningless or wrong.
And that could lead to all those contradictory results across different studies we sometimes hear about.
It certainly contributes. Applying a powerful tool in the wrong way can sometimes be worse than not using it at all.
That's a crucial point. Are there other historical influences on training?
Yes. Historically, the field has seen what one source calls the punishing influence of psychology.
Punishing influence.
Because psychology was so dominant for so long, its focus on controls, variables, and quantifiable indicators kind of became the default model.
Right.
This tended to perpetuate a transmission model of socialization, like pouring knowledge into students, and it often assumed a universal pattern of learning.
Universal, like everyone learns the same way.
That was often the implicit assumption. And this dominance, the argument goes, effectively silenced most research that springs from distant and different premises.
Like the anthropological perspectives we just discussed.
Exactly. Anthropology, for instance, has documented incredibly diverse forms of caregiving, language socialization, different ways children in different cultures display knowledge, all challenging those universal assumptions about development.
That makes so much sense, highlighting, again, the importance of cultural context. And speaking of culture, how does the researcher's own cultural self play into this? Does their background matter?
Vitally. Acknowledging that a researcher's own cultural background inevitably influences their interactions with informants, the people they're studying, is seen as crucial now.
Okay.
And building trust with those informants is paramount. If there's no trust, participants might only engage at a superficial public discourse level,
Which could lead to...
potentially false findings that don't actually reveal deeper truths or perspectives. It undermines the research.
So there's an ethical dimension here, too.
Absolutely. Scholar Anne Brown put it very powerfully. She said, if the children with whom I and my partners work did not learn, understand, and achieve better as a result of their experiences in our research, I would find it morally unacceptable to continue.
Wow. That's a truly profound statement. That ethical commitment should guide all research involving people, especially children.
Agreed.
Now let's talk about bridging that persistent gap between research and practice. There's this idea of the practitioner researcher.
Yes, this is a really important development. Traditionally, leading doctoral programs in education, well, they have not taken seriously the wisdom of practice the teachers and other educators bring with them.
Kind of an ivory tower disconnect.
You could say that,
Yeah.
but we're seeing these transformative personal journeys that really challenge this.
Like who?
Take Devin Brenner. She was a fourth-grade teacher. She initially found academic research completely inaccessible to most teachers, just didn't speak their language.
Right.
So her doctoral journey became about bridging those understandings, and it was deeply rooted in her own struggles as a beginning teacher.
Making research relevant to the realities of the classroom.
Exactly. And another great example, Gloria Ladson-Billings, an African-American scholar. She found that her initial school of education just lacked opportunities for research that felt relevant to the African-American community.
So what does she do?
She pursued a really circuitous route, as she calls it, from the ed school to the anthropology department to Afro-American studies. She noted that taking the long way around may have saved my intellectual life.
Wow. Finding her own path.
And she later developed a research method drawing on Black feminist epistemology, which relies heavily on dialogue anchored in concrete experience, caring. Very different from traditional quantitative methods.
These are incredible examples of how crucial a researcher's background, identity, and values can be in shaping their work.
Absolutely. And scholars like Deborah Ball and Magdalene Lampert embody this new image of the researcher practitioner even further. They actually conduct research by studying their own teaching practice.
Studying their own classrooms.
Yes. For instance, Deborah Ball's third-grade classroom actually produced a research discovery so compelling about how kids understood numbers, and it got cited by other education researchers.
A discovery from a third-grade class.
Yes. It revealed how children can know and understand much more than previously estimated, especially when knowledge is created and shared within a classroom community.
That's a fascinating insight-knowledge co-creation in the classroom. So what are the broader implications for training future education researchers? How should PhD programs change?
Well, the suggestion is that doctoral programs should really consider students' diverse epistemologies and biographies, where they come from, how they know things.
Right.
They should foster early and continuous engagement in actual research, not just coursework, and encourage research groups for collaborative learning.
Learning together.
And professors themselves need to acknowledge the limitations of traditional training models and actively seek connections to solving real-world educational problems.
This whole section really reveals that impactful education research isn't just about mastering methodologies, is it?
Not at all.
It's deeply intertwined with the identity, the values, the experiences of the researchers themselves, and the vital importance of integrating the wisdom of practice directly into scholarly inquiry.
It's a much more holistic view of how we build knowledge in education, and it's absolutely essential for creating relevant and effective change.
Couldn't agree more.
No.
Okay, in our final segment, we're going to explore the digital frontier, how new media and collaborative futures are transforming education research.
Yes, the impact of technology.
One of the most significant changes seems to be this revolution in representation, how we capture what happens in classrooms.
That's right. New media, particularly video, allows for documenting teaching and learning in a much richer way than previously.
Richer how?
It can help overcome some of the biases inherent in older methods, like just relying on observer notes. And video provides these concrete examples of practice that can help develop a common language for talking and thinking about teaching.
Seeing is believing, or at least seeing allows for shared understanding.
Exactly. And beyond video, the internet itself is fostering these virtual communities of teachers and researchers.
Right, connecting people across distances.
Enabling collaboration, shared resources, knowledge exchange through things like electronic journals and online forums. It truly breaks down geographical and institutional barriers.
Let's look at a specific case study in this kind of collaborative innovation. The Middle School Mathematics Applications Project, or MMAP.
Ah, yes, MMAP. A great example. This project actually integrated education researchers, teachers, curriculum developers, and students into one collaborative team.
Everyone working together.
Everyone working together focused on improving mathematics education. They developed this really interesting applications-based curriculum.
What did that involve?
It immerses students in these extended role-play design projects. For example, creating architectural floor plans or modeling population growth using special software called Habitat.
So learning math by doing real-world-like tasks.
Precisely. Mathematical concepts and skills are developed within contexts that provide intuitively grounded reasons for needing them. It makes the learning incredibly relevant.
And what was the key to its collaborative success? You mentioned teachers were involved.
Absolutely key. Teachers were integral researchers in MAP. They weren't just delivering the curriculum, they were actively involved in
In what ways?
designing assessment opportunities within the project units, using special record-keeping devices to track how students were engaging mathematically during project work, developing improved methods for student peer reviews, leading really in-depth mathematical discussions.
Wow, a lot of roles.
And critically, participating in the analysis of classroom videotapes alongside the university researchers, helping them see the whole picture from a practitioner's perspective.
This project really blurred those traditional roles, didn't it? Researcher, teacher, curriculum designer.
Totally blurred. As one MMAP staff member reflected, everyone simply got smarter the old-fashioned way, by working together.
I love that.
And the teachers, they expressed a really strong sense of ownership when their input, their practical knowledge, was actually incorporated into the curriculum materials.
That makes sense, feeling valued.
But there was also this poignant concern raised by one teacher. What about the teacher? Isn't she an expert in education?
Highlighting that desire for public recognition of teachers' expertise, including their potential role as researchers.
Exactly. It's a powerful testament to the value and the complexities of genuine collaboration.
For another fascinating look at using technology in documentation, let's revisit Deborah Ball and Magdalene Lampert's work studying their own teaching.
Yes, their documentation efforts are really insightful. Their goal wasn't necessarily to find simple answers, but to develop a more finely tuned ability to examine and interpret teaching and learning.
How did they do that?
Paradoxically, by increasing its cacophony, by bringing in multiple perspectives to better face the inherent complexities of the classroom.
Increasing the cacophony. That sounds counterintuitive.
But the idea is that complexity requires multiple viewpoints. They collected incredibly extensive records from their own classrooms.
What kind of records?
Daily student notebooks, homework, quizzes, video and audio recordings of nearly every lesson, detailed observer notes, plus their own teaching journals and reflections. Just a massive archive of practice.
That sounds incredibly rich. What's an example that really illustrates how these multiple perspectives illuminate a single moment?
A great example comes from that Sean numbers episode we touched on earlier.
Right.
Remember, the third grader, Sean, proposed that the number 6 could be considered both an even and an odd number.
Right. How did different people view that?
Well, when they showed records of this classroom discussion to different groups, preservist teachers, research mathematicians, other education researchers, each group viewed the episode through their own disciplinary lens.
They saw different things.
They asked different questions, focused on different aspects of the interaction, saw different mathematical or pedagogical issues at play. It beautifully highlighted the amazing array of perspectives that can be fruitfully brought to bear on practice from the outside.
That truly brings the concept of multiple perspectives to life. One classroom moment, many interpretations. How do new technologies enhance this multi-layered approach?
Well, new technologies like Hypermedia Think Interactive, linked digital archives allow investigators to access, link, and annotate these massive collections of records in powerful ways.
Oh, so.
It enables what the researchers call a multiplicity of time, evidence, and perspective.
Okay, break that down. Multiplicity of time.
It means examining learning beyond single lessons. You can trace a student's idea or a classroom concept developing over weeks or months, understanding long-term development.
Got it. Multiplicity of evidence.
Accessing all those diverse forms of information transcripts, student work samples, video clips, teacher notes about the same event, they might offer different, even conflicting interpretations.
So you have to grapple with the complexity of the data.
Exactly. Thoughtfully grapple. And finally, multiplicity of perspective.
What's that?
It means convening potentially hundreds of diverse traversals. Different pathways and interpretations around a shared common context, like the Sean Numbers episode. It enriches everyone's understanding and shapes the investigator's own intellectual dispositions.
This really illustrates how technology isn't just a tool for efficiency, is it?
Not at all. It's acting as a catalyst for fundamentally changing how education research is done.
Fostering deep collaboration, revealing hidden complexities in teaching and learning.
And potentially finally bridging that long-standing gap between research and practice.
What an illuminating journey this has been. We ventured through the often challenging history of education research, seen how its inherent interdisciplinary nature is pushing boundaries, and discovered how these new models of training and technology are enabling a richer, more collaborative understanding of teaching and learning.
It's become really clear, hasn't it, that impactful education research isn't just about mastering specific methodologies.
No, it seems much deeper than that.
It's about the identity, the values, the lived experiences of the researchers themselves, and that vital importance of integrating the wisdom of practice, the teacher's knowledge, directly into scholarly inquiry.
And as we've explored throughout this deep dive, those sources remind us that educational aims are culturally constituted rather than given or neutrally natural.
Right. Our goals for education come from our culture, our society.
Which means education research, at its best, really becomes a kind of cultural science.
A cultural science, I like that.
And if our society truly seeks to ensure that the symbolic golden apple of education goes to institutions that can do best for children whose parents never went to college,
A crucial goal for equity.
then we absolutely must continue to embrace and foster this robust, collaborative, and culturally aware approach to education inquiry.
Which means continuously asking not just what schools achieve, but why they pursue those particular goals in the first place.
And how those goals reflect our deepest, perhaps sometimes unexamined, societal values.
A lot to think about.
Indeed. So a final thought for you, our listener. What stands out to you from this deep dive into the world of education research? How might these insights change the way you think about current educational debates, policy decisions, or even just your own learning experiences?
We encourage you to reflect on those questions.
And continue your own deep dive. Thanks for joining us.